Hey, it's Downsy, and joining me on the line from home now is editor of Bristol 24/7, Martin Booth. Martin, you've had quite the week, haven't you?
It's been a week that will live long in the memory. And you know what, Downsy? It's not over yet. There are protests planned. We're talking on Friday just before midday, and there are protests planned for this evening and perhaps over the weekend. So when you guys are watching this, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, but certainly Bristol's been in the international headlines this week.
So take us back to where it all began and when you knew this was going to be a hell of a week for Bristol.
It's an interesting question because I wasn't on Sunday when there was the march. We obviously made sure at Bristol 24/7 to cover that. So that was the initial Kill the Bill protest. So the march started. It started quite. I'm going to use the word shambolically. It started quite shambolically in College Green because there's no organisers of these events, and so no one really knew where to go, what to do. Everyone was milling around on College Green from the start at about 2 p.m. and then a kind of marching band appeared, and people followed them through the streets and kind of wiggled their way through the city centre, passing actually Bridewell Police Station, where I think about 3 or 4 police officers were just outside, just standing there. The march finished, and to be honest, I then went home. I thought that's the end. That's it. That's the end of it. A colourful, kind of convivial scene. It was quite carnivalesque at times, the march, but then I was told that quite a lot of people had gathered outside the police station. So I went back to the police station, and the scene in front of me was 2 lines of riot police outside the entrance to Bridewell. And in the middle of that were 3 or 4 mounted police. And pushing against these 2 lines of police were protesters. And there was quite a bit of jostling, and that's where it all started.
So describe to us the atmosphere at that point. We've all seen the imagery, of course, some fantastic coverage from Bristol 24/7 and yourself, but actually being there, what did it feel like?
It was tense. Certainly at the start, it was tense, because there was confrontation. Some people were agitating. They were goading. The police on Sunday evening did extraordinarily well, not to be provoked in the face of quite severe agitation on behalf of the people that were there. Every so often, there were scuffles would break out, but then as the atmosphere, it was relatively calm at times, but at other times, meters away, it was violent. One of the interesting aspects was that many protesters wanted clearly things to be peaceful. They were pleading with a group of around half a dozen people on a flat roof overlooking the police station, who ended up throwing pebbles and stones that were underneath their feet at the lines of police. People on the ground were pleading with the people throwing those stones to stop. They were saying, "Do not do this. This is a peaceful protest." So in terms of the makeup of the crowd, clearly there were some people there who wanted peaceful demonstrations to continue as it had throughout the day. It was abundantly clear, though, that there were other people who were after a fight.
Mm-hmm. And those two groups of people, like you say, clearly defined. At what stage of the evening did the people who wanted to fight sort of take over from the people that wanted a peaceful protest?
I think what lit the fuse for me, and saying that that's in a literal sense as well as a metaphorical sense, because extra police vans arrived as reinforcements, and police dogs arrived to help out. And then one of the police vans, a protester attempted to light the wheel of one of the vans, and it slowly took off. This was a van parked outside the police station. It slowly came alight, the tire. But then from the other side of the van, police put it out with a extinguisher. At that moment, my phone ran out of battery, so I had to dash back to my flat, which fortunately is only 5 minutes by bicycle if I'm cycling fast. So I was back at my flat for half an hour, charging my phone. By the time I got back, a police van was fully alight, like fully alight, on Bridewell Street, a mobile police office.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly this then had got out of control.
And at what stage did you personally become involved? Because I mean, you were actually arrested, weren't you?
So we're now talking about what happened on two different protests. So I was detained by the police on about 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning. So after the second night of protests. So on Sunday evening, I was watching as these rioters clashed with police. On Tuesday evening, I watched again as a peaceful protest. Well, not again, because the police tactics on Tuesday evening were quite different. So on Tuesday, a group of protesters had set up tents, a sound system on College Green, again protesting against the bill. At about 10 in the evening, 25 riot vans just screamed to a halt outside on College Green, and then the police just ringed the site, and then cleared these protesters, and quite a lot of protesters were pushed back to Deanery Road, so past Central Library, quite near the Three Tons pub, which I enjoy drinking in normal times, because it's only a few hundred yards from my front door. So kind of my own neighbourhood. This is, Bristol's my city, and this is my own neighbourhood. And there was this standoff between, although standoff's probably the wrong word, because it was the riot police spread the width of the road, and they were about 10 meters away from protesters who were just sat down. So for a good 2.5 hours, protesters on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning were sat down. Some of them were lying down. And then the police moved forward, started arresting them for breaking COVID regulations, and also obstructing the highway. Mm-hmm. Eventually, there were dogs out again, there were horses, and they just moved the protesters down what's now St George's Road towards Jacobs Wells roundabout. So this was about 2 a.m, and by that stage there was a handful of protesters still around. So my phone had once again run out of batteries. So I just was I think I was standing on the pavement on Anchor Road, and just watching the last of the proceedings. And then I remember thinking to myself, "There's nothing's happening anymore. I'm just going to go home," because I live 100 meters away. And that's when I was jumped on by a number of officers, and I think that I must have had my back turned, because I didn't see them. I didn't see them until they grabbed me by the arms. Having watched the end of proceedings, I made sure that I could see what was going on. So I can only think that I had turned around and was walking back down the pavement back to my house when these officers in full riot gear grabbed me. I just happened to be standing next to a freelance photographer, Simon Chapman, who immediately started taking photos. And I immediately started, I think my first words to the police was, I'm a member of the media, I'm press, I'm a journalist, I'm reporting on proceedings. And they just said, don't believe you. We don't believe that you're a journalist. I said, I am a journalist. And then they marched me back to kind of where the police lines were, on St. George's Road.
So how did you feel after that sort of experience? I mean, it's, been quite the week, and then sort of you becoming personally involved. What lessons do we have to learn here?
Yeah, the old adage in journalism is don't become the story. And I want to record faithfully, document what's been happening in our city, what continues to happen in our city. It's my job as a journalist to report, to tell people what's happening, to be the eyes and ears, to inform. And so I felt it my utmost duty to be there that night and not to leave until things had finished, because I didn't want to miss anything. Becoming part of the story is the absolute last thing that I want to happen. So people will say, well, that's ironic, because I've seen you on RT, Jeremy Vine's show, Points West. But actually, that happened before I got detained, because quite a lot of the larger media organizations didn't have reporters on the ground during Sunday's riots. So on Wednesday morning, what I've learned is that it's the absolute crucial role that journalism has to play in our modern society. I think it was so important that myself and other journalists were documenting what was going on, and continue to report impartially, fairly, accurately report what is happening. I have never had a card in my wallet in 20 years of being a professional journalist that says that I am a journalist. The police asked for my press accreditation. I told them I never had a press card, and a document from the press regulator that said that I'm a key worker, because journalists are classified as key workers in the pandemic. That my phone had died, and so I didn't have that on me either. So there's certainly lessons to learn from my perspective. But since that happened, I have had an apology from a senior officer in Avon and Somerset Constabulary, who phoned me up just to say sorry for what had happened. So certainly lessons to be learned on both sides.
But certainly none of this experience is going to stop you being that journalist that is there on the scene, reporting, like you say, the true facts of what happens in our city.
Absolutely, Downsy, 100%. I think that on Wednesday morning, Andy Marsh, the chief inspector of Avon and Somerset, he made a statement in a press conference. He said something along the lines of protesters were escalating the situation at 1 a.m. And I found that an interesting version of events, because I was at that location at 1 a.m. and I checked video that I'd taken at 1 a.m. And at 1 a.m., protesters were sat down on the floor as they had been for the last 2 hours. So I think it's just absolutely crucial for media to continue to accurately report what is happening in our city, because that's the only I don't want to get into the arguments about the bill itself, about what that means, about its implications, about whether it's right or wrong. It's my job to report what's happening in Bristol and look at it with my own eyes, and the only way to do that accurately is to be there. So this has only increased my resolve and the love that I have for my chosen career, and my utmost respect for my fellow journalists who make sure that we are where it matters.
And like you say, the story doesn't end yet.
Certainly not. So you don't know what's going to happen. Genuinely, I've got no idea what I'm going to be reporting on in Bristol over the weekend and in the coming weeks, in the coming months. We could have a long summer ahead of us. I think it's just our job as journalists at Bristol24 and elsewhere to share those stories, to make sure that people know what's happening in our city. Again, I sound like a broken record, but to report fairly and accurately and without any judgment about what's happening on our streets. Whose streets are streets is a common chant from these protesters, and in a way they are correct. These are our streets. I'm not a protester. I'm not I'm not a protester who is demanding anything to happen. But if they're there on the streets demanding things to happen, then I'll be there watching those demands.
Being our eyes and ears as ever, such a crucial and important role. And congratulations on some superb reporting over the last few days. I've really felt like I've been there, and especially when we saw you being carted off, it was as it happened. And I think that is such a crucial role. Martin, long may it continue. I'm so pleased it hasn't put you off, and thank you very much for spending your time today.
Cheers, Downsy. I'll see you at Ashton Gate tomorrow for Bristol Bears, and hopefully have a peaceful afternoon.